When I mute. Okay. Okay, then bye-bye. Hello, everyone. I think now we are almost set to start. I want to confirm that our speaker is here, Professor Masiwa. I don't know which name he has used to log in. Please, Prof, if you are in, inbox me on my WhatsApp. Okay, welcome back, everyone. I hope you have enjoyed the break, and I hope you are doing well. We are ready for this other session. We will continue with Professor Chitando, even as we wait for Professor Matsiwa to join us. So relax, put your questions, comments on the chat or on the main WhatsApp group, and let us benefit from the wisdom of our very own Professor Chitando. Welcome back, Professor. Thank you very much. You are able to unmute yourself now, please.
Okay, good afternoon, Ref Doc. Good afternoon, friends. Welcome back. We are deeply impressed by the commitment that you are demonstrating to remain on the call. What I will try and do while we wait for Prof. Masiwa to come through, and you elaborate on some of the themes that we are going to brainstorm on, is to ask the question, some of which we have already covered in the first session. What are some of the roadblocks and frustrations that we face, or reasons that people put forward when they resist transformative masculinities and femininities? I'll quickly run through some of these, and we can have a discussion afterwards. I will not go into the details of gender formation. I think we've already covered this in the first session, where but perhaps I would allude to some of the factors that Prof. Gunda will expand on when he comes. This topic really on number one, what are the factors we are here says, I thank you all for coming back. What are some of the factors that shape us as men and boys, women and girls? I'll quickly run through these. They are called the gender formation forces or socialization factors. Number one of the most effective, and when I say effective, I'm not always saying it's the right, but it's one instrument that is used to shape our minds and activities and attitudes as men and boys, is the family. The family is one of the most powerful socializing forces, which is why when we met in the first session, a lot of the questions also focused on what do we do at the family level to transform gender norms, because the family is the theater where the operation of imparting values and gender norms and approaches is undertaken. It is at the family that we are given names, and the names that we get are already names that suggest whether we are gendered or not, and most of the time will be gendered. So in Zimbabwe, for example, if a lecturer is marking an essay and the student's name is Beauty, do you think the lecturer is marking thinking this is a man's paper or a woman's paper? Please come through, just 2-3 responses, and then I will proceed. If the student is named Beauty and you are the lecturer, the teacher, the examiner, do you think this student is male or female? Please come on the chat. Monica says the ladies. Thank you, Monica. Someone please come through. You are a teacher, you are marking even in primary school, and the paper has the name Beauty. Of course, as our friend has said, Beauty is female, as a paper says. Emmanuel says female, female, female. So the fact that we are unanimous that the paper Santiago says F for female, that the paper in front of the teacher is from beauty tells us that there is a social expectation. Karen says female. There's a social expectation that someone called beauty is female. In Zimbabwe, my apologies for using the Zimbabwe, beauty is female, says Grace. In Zimbabwe, there was a contest. Sorry, I'm laughing. There was a contest called XX Ugly, UGLI. And I want to ask, would this contest be Mrs. Ugly contest or Mr. Ugly contest? Again, please come through on the chat. The contest, it ran, I think, for 3 years. One person won it twice and lost it the third year. XX, is it Mr. Ugly or Mrs. Ugly contest? Please come through 2-3 responses and then I will proceed. When Zimbabwe held its beauty or ugly contest, do you think it was a Mrs. Ugly, MRS, or Mr. Ugly, MR Ugly, UGLI? Even as you come through, I can actually say that the winner of this contest, Mr. Ugly, it was called Mr. Ugly. So there's a social expectation that while a woman must be beautiful and be named beauty, the men, on the other hand, can freely go into a Mr. Ugly contest. So this is what gender formation does to us at the family level. When a parent or when parents name their daughter beauty, they are imbuing her with certain values and social expectations that she will be beautiful, admired, and be married accordingly. When the boy child is called Mr. Ugly, it also means there's a social expectation that he doesn't need to be handsome or beautiful and to be admired. He's riffraff, he's a character and a loose personality, as it were. So the family plays a key role in the formation of gender norms and values, from the names that are given to children, the gifts that are given to children, and the social moral expectations. Boys don't cry. Why are you crying? You are not going to be a strong man. Why are you being rude? No one will marry you. So there are certain cultural norms and values that are given in a family as one of the socializing agents. The community in which we move, that's number 2, is a socializing agent. The community in which we move and have our being, the proverbs that we listen to, the language that we hear, the teachings that are imparted to us is also part of the socialization that we experience. The school is a powerful socializing agent. It teaches us values on what is expected of men and boys. So we have said the family, the community, the school, the media, right? The kind of images of men and women that we encounter online and in different other spaces, they give us expectations of what is expected of a man and what is expected of a woman. Finally, religion. It could be Christianity, the dress code. Do you put on a duke? Do you put on headgear or you do not? What are the biblical texts saying about what is expected of a man, of a woman? So all these, when they come together, they fulfill what I said in the first lecture, which is to say that we are born male or female, but it is society that makes us men or women, meaning there's a distinction between biological identity and social gender identity. It is therefore important to, when we seek to transform social norms and values in terms of masculinities and femininities, when we want to move from toxic masculinities to redemptive or transformative masculinities, we must ensure that all these socializing spaces and agents are equipped, empowered, and cleansed, as it were, so that they become more effective in giving us newer and more empowering identities. So that is the background. But the area I want to focus on is one that Prof. Masiwa will come on and elaborate on. So it is my distinct honor and privilege to come to Professor Masiwa so that he takes us through the next phase. But let us be mindful and remember that there are a number of socializing agents that we need to pay attention to. Thanks, and over to you, Dr. Pauline.
Very much, Professor Chitando. As I said earlier, it is always a pleasure and an honor to sit under your feet and run. And I believe that those of us who are runners, we are learning quite a lot. Thank you so, so much. I will take now this opportunity to welcome our next professor, our very own, one of our mentors, Professor Masiwa Guda. Professor Masiwa is a professor from Zimbabwe as well. And he currently is a program executive in the World Council of Churches. The program is known as, I think, Overcoming Racism. And the professor has been with us before, for those who have been long in this forum. And I am sure we are all longing to hear him and to learn more from him, to pick up from where Professor Ezra Chitando has stopped. These are our male champions. These are our champions when it comes to gender transformation and male allies to the struggle against the sexual and gender-based violence against women and girls. So when we continue with these 16 days of activism in the quarters of WCC and in the quarters of the Circle of Concerned African Women Theologians, in the circles of the Game Changers, these two professors are really our strong anchor in this area. So most welcome, Professor Masiwa. We have already had the first session, which ran 3 hours in the morning in Togo and parts of Western Africa, and 3 hours in early afternoon here in Eastern Africa. We are ready for you. We have about 2.5 hours, which you can use the way you wish. But just before we go and we usher you in, I want to invite Dr. John from Nigeria to briefly highlight what was captured in the morning so that you know the group of people you are talking to, that they have already learned something. This group is unique in the sense that it brings together young people from the whole of Africa, from all the 5 higher regions. And we have been here sitting, standing, walking, driving, and learning from the wisdom of Professor Chitando. So karibu sana, John. Take only 5 minutes. I don't know what name you have logged in with. Let me see if I can get you. Yes, I have got you. Please unmute, John, and recap in a very brief way. Thank you. And you can also unmute your video.
Thank you very much, Reverend. I'm grateful. Thank you to all of our people that are online with us. I'm so sorry that I couldn't come on earlier than now. We thank God for the work that has been done so far in the training of trainers for young people on transformative masculinity and feminities in the context of HIV and SGBV. Life is actually a gift from God, and different stages of life has its own attending challenges, which may times are inevitable in nature. And the youth stage of life is a stage full of great events. Youth opt to seek to discover their world and also for means to fit perfectly into it. In West Africa, we are grateful for major positive actions employed to end sexual and gender-based violence, especially in Nigeria with the active involvement of HIAI, FIDA, International Federation of Women Lawyers, and the formation of gender desk in all our security agencies and faith-based support groups that have come to help us. However, there is so much to be done because just a few days back, we were together interacting, and my colleague from Ghana was sharing with me that the decline in the concurrent exposure and enlightenment about HIV and AIDS and gender-based violence has caused a prevalence of about increase of 23% in young adolescents in Ghana with the infection of HIV and AIDS. And then some of these people, because of the stereotypes and social exclusion, fear of stigmatization, native ignorance has contributed widely to them not adhering to their treatment and some religious extremism. I therefore wish to let us know that this problem of youth crisis constitute great challenges to the family, to the church, and then the society at large. And the youth are prone to both positive and negative influences, depending largely upon how they are handled by the family, church, and society. I therefore call on us, even as we continue to share. Professor Chitando has spoken so much on the instrument of religion as a great tool to enlighten our people. And I believe that just like our father, Reverend Anaga, has rightly mentioned, it is very important now if West Africa will be able to stand firm and grow, we must reinvent. Let's seek more ways to engage our young people. Intergenerational dialogue has come to bear on this matter. Thank you so much for everyone who has listened. And I therefore call to everyone to rise up onto positive masculinity and make the world a better place for all of us. Thank you, Reverend Dr. Paul. I'm so grateful. God bless you.
Thank you very much, Dr. John. Now we put our hands together to welcome Professor Masiwa Nguda to take us through the next session. Professor Masiwa, please.
Thank you so much, Reverend Dr. Pauline. And my apologies, friends. I missed the 1 hour shift in our time, so I was not on time coming on board. But I'm also very excited, or maybe even very challenged on how do I proceed after listening to Professor Chitando breaking down the whole idea of gender formation. So yes, that's my task today. Certainly not to teach gender formation. Reverend Dr. Pauline, I'm not too sure whether we can use breakout rooms, if that's possible, because today I wanted us to
yes,
work
we
in
can.
Yes, yes.
But
I think
people also want to see you.
Yes.
We appreciate Martin Luther, but please let us see you.
I thought everybody would love Martin Luther and forget about me, but I will briefly show myself. At least people will know I am there indeed. It's me. So that's me, Masiwa Regis Gunda from Zimbabwe, working with the World Council of Churches. But I think because I'm seeing that my signal is not very strong, so I will put the video off and then I will share my screen.
That is fine. You can send me the questions so that I can create the rooms.
Okay, so let me, is everyone seeing my screen now? Reverend Doc, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So initially, I think I was given a title that was slightly different, but then I was thinking that we could approach our discussion today in terms of gender formation, but not only formation, but gender gatekeeping as well. So, because formation is one thing, but what sustains gender through and through is also the very strong element of gatekeeping. And so today we want to focus on these two elements, but also how we can begin to make inroads into undermining gatekeeping as it is, toxic gatekeeping, and offering alternatives or positive or transformational and transformative forms of gatekeeping. So, gender, these are mere highlights, I think, of things that we already know. But we need just to reiterate, to recap these things. Gender is socially constructed, by which we mean gender is a product of our societies, not something that is created by God. Gender is not something that we are getting from God. Gender is how our different societies are shaping males and females, right? If we recall Genesis chapter 1, God created them, male and female, he created them. So how does society transform? How does society change male into masculinity or masculine, and female into femininity or into a feminine being? That is the process of gender formation, right? This transformation from the male, the female at birth, to becoming the masculine or the feminine in life within the society. So societies have systems. So that is formation. Societies then have systems as well of gatekeeping that allow them to enforce compliance with gender identities and roles. The reason why we conform, the reason why sometimes we are always looking behind our shoulders to see if someone is looking, if someone is observing us, is because we are aware that there is a process of gatekeeping that happens when it comes to identities and roles. So you'll find a woman that says to the husband, why are you washing the dishes outside? Right? So the problem is not that the husband is washing dishes because she wants to be helped. But the problem is he has decided to do it outside because then other people will see. In other words, gatekeepers will see that this man is not conforming or this woman is not conforming, and then the gatekeepers will spring into action to try and enforce compliance with identities and roles. So evidence-based researches have shown gender relations have largely been toxic, right? The girl child and women have largely been or disproportionately been impacted negatively by unbalanced gender relations. Hence, the call for transformational as well as transformative strategies to eliminate toxicity in gender relations. Transformational calls, and I want us also to be to play around these terms, transformational and transformative. So transformational calls for a reform-minded approach to what is wrong. And this is something lately I have been speaking about, particularly when we are looking at the older generations. We might no longer be able to be transformative with them but we might still be able to reform them. So transformational calls for a reform-minded approach to what is wrong, while on the other hand, transformative calls for a revolutionary, disruptive approach to what is wrong. And that is, the what is wrong part is the toxicity in gender relations. So we can have a transformational approach to gender relations. So we try and reform. We know, we hear some people say, you know, the elder, whether it's men or women, they are like sweet potatoes. If they are already bent, if they are deformed, that's how they are. If you try to straighten them up, they break and you get nothing out of it. But you try and reform the elderly while revolutionary transforming the younger generations. So two complementary approaches to dealing with two different generations, but that are confronted by the same toxicity in gender relations. So in this session, friends, what I want us to do is to share our experiences of gender formation, because we all have some experience. And Professor Chitando has already helped us to also visualize the way the way gender formation happens, the way gatekeeping happens. So what we'll do is we will, in the next 5 minutes, break out into different rooms. And in these different rooms, we will have a worksheet that we will work with. I will briefly share with you the worksheet, and then we can, so what we want is this one, gender formation group work. So every person is socialized to become a gendered person. This is a process that can begin as early as a pregnancy is confirmed and parents and relatives begin to express their expectations to the unborn child. Scientists have suggested that unborn children can already hear. So they actually encourage, if you go for prenatal or antenatal assistance in the clinics to the gynecologist and so on, they tell you, even particularly to us as men, to already begin communicating with our children as they are in their mother's womb, because they are already hearing and relating to us. So that already means the process of socialization is already beginning. Gender formation is the process by which persons, especially children, are trained, taught to think, to dress, and act in certain ways. Formation takes place in various places of learning. The question is, how is the teaching and learning done? In groups, we work on the process of formation using the worksheet in Word document, which, so we will take about 20 minutes to do that, 15 to 20 minutes. We should be able, it's a very simple worksheet that I have prepared for you. So I will for now stop sharing this document and share the Word document for you to see, and then we can briefly look at it and see how we can work together in groups with that worksheet. So allow me to share. Okay, can you see now the gender formation worksheet?
Yes, from this end.
Yes, thank you. So this is the worksheet that we work with. And there are basically two questions, right? So the first question is, we want to identify who are the teachers of gender. Who are the teachers of gender identities, gender roles, gender norms, gender values? Who teaches? Who socializes people into these identities, roles, norms, and values? So that's what we have. I provided 5 slots, but there could be more. And in our groups, we can add as men extra other teachers of this. And by this, we are not going to say John, James, Zachariah, and so on, but we can say, for example, school teachers, right? We can say parents. We can say relatives, we can say friends. So we name the categories and the groups of people that are involved in the process of socializing us or teaching all of us into the expected gender identities and roles. The second is, what are the things that are said and done in each of these places of gender formation? And I have identified here, and Professor Chitando, thank you, because you had already spoken about these spaces. So the family, the church, or the mosque, or the faith community, the school, the educational community, the college, the workplace, all these are spaces. Maybe we could even add, I don't know how we can describe the children's recreational spaces, the places, the areas where children are playing by themselves without adults, because that's also a critical place where gender formation occurs. So we could even add that on this worksheet. And then we try and discuss as a group. We try and list the kinds of things that are said and done. Because remember, formation does not only involve verbal teaching. It also involves a lot of observation. And therefore, what is done is very important. Other than what is said, there is also those things that are done. And the things that are done don't necessarily always have to be positive or negative. It could be a mixture of all these things. So when we are writing, let us not try to create the perfect socialization model. Let us create the most realistic socialization model. What are the things that are done in families? In churches, in schools, in colleges, in workplaces, that will define us to be the people that we become eventually. So we have this first worksheet. Reverend Doc, you had said, I'm not too sure if you can, or maybe let me put it in the chat, or I can then put it in the different rooms, in the chats in the different rooms at some point, once you have the groups done, because it is the same worksheet for all the groups. Shall I do the groups now? Yes, please.
Okay, let me see what I need to
So do. In the groups, let us also then choose somebody that will briefly give a feedback to the whole group. At the end of the 15-20 minutes, we come back, we give a feedback, and then we look at gatekeeping. What is gatekeeping? And then we will go back into those groups, and we do that as we proceed.
Okay, I've made 15 minutes. I can't get 20.
Okay.
But that's it. They are gone.
Okay. So I will then go into all the, so allow me outside of the group so I can move in. I think I can move in and out of the groups. So I give them
and see if you can. If you're not able, let me know.
Okay. Okay.
Hello, friend.
nose Josh ibintu byabayeho
nta munsi Kagame rwara bikwibwe saba hanze saa kaza kwiga karasi ndahari
kandi ejo bamwandikira
tumaze kugira ku ishuri ibyo bya trip twabivuyeho bya kuri icyo kibazo cyo mu ishuri
ni ikibazo gikomeye cyane umuyobozi ugomba kubwiza abanyeshuri
ukuri icyo
gutora kugira ngo savinge n'abantu mukorana ama saving
ngo nashakaga ngo muze kwiga kuba wabishaka akambyutsa ranjye
tumaze kugira trip ebyiri ziba muri weekend urumva
ariko nyibukije na trip yandi ya mbere nayo ari kuvuga oya nabyo kuvuga ubusho ugenda ndahita avuga n'akandi gatendo wakoze uko habaye ayisha nyine yakoze udutendo twinshi
ese trip tuzireke tuzijyane iki gihe cyakure wenda zizabe mu mibyizi urumva ariko kuba umudive nibuza abandi gukora ibyo bagomba gukora
ibyo sinzi aho bivugira
ntabwo tujya muri trip kuki se niba mvuga ati ngenda umudive justifyinga noza yanjye ivuga uti sindaza gukora kuri tele urumva bivuze ko niyo mwarimu yanyangira
Great. The group is Please, I need a group.
Welcome back. I see we are coming back now. And I know we had technical challenges in this first group, working group session. But I also, as I was moving through the different groups, I also saw that some groups were really doing some serious business. So I will ask group one, the one who is giving us feedback from group one, to quickly share with us what you managed to work on in your group. I can share so this is our gender formation worksheet. I don't know if you can just take us through. So on question one, group one, what is your feedback? Or you can just give us, say, let's say group one gives us 2, so that each group has something to give us. On question one, group one. Okay, group 2.
Thank you, Prof. Someone who's supposed to present has failed to unmute himself, but I will just give a few highlights of group one.
Yes.
Yes. One, we looked at, let me just give 2 so that others have what to speak. We looked at the neighbors and the friends. We had a list of so many people, but since you said we only give 2, let me just give those ones.
Yes,
and
thank you.
Concerning question 2, we looked at the workplaces where you find.
Hello, can you go ahead on the workplace?
We looked at the workplaces where you find most women are hired as receptionists, and they are not given chances to do other work. Most of the receptionists you find they are only ladies. You can never find a man with a receptionist. And we also discussed that in families, most parents give different roles to their children. You find girls are always taught how to cook, take care of the home and all that, and the boy child is just there. They are only taught how to go and work and get wealth. And also the third thing that we discussed about inheritance, the children are always, the boy child is always brought up that is the one who's going to inherit, it's very hard to find a girl inheriting property. So those are a few things we discussed. We had a lot of them, but I've just given in a few so that the rest can also share. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Prof.
Thank you so much. Group 2, can you also come in and add some more? Group 2. Okay, group 3. Is anybody preparing to give us something? Group 2, group 3, group 4? Group 5?
Thank you so much for the opportunity. So I will go ahead and just mention what we were able to discuss.
Yes, please.
1 moment. Trying to minimize this so I can get to my, just 1 moment. Okay, I thought I will minimize, but because of your sharing, I cannot be able to do that. So, okay, that's better. Let me just use what we had titled. So group 5, we were 7 members, and what we were able to come up for question 1, we have schools, we have parents or guardians or caregivers, we have religion, we have culture, we have organizations such as NGOs and parastatals that focus on gender matters, we have peer groups, we have the social media, we have friends. Then on the second question, on the family, we have several, what is said and what is done in the family that portrays gender roles and gender formation in the same. So gendering starts at an early age. For instance, when parents are buying gifts for their children, you'll find that for the girls, they're buying dolls, for the boys, they're buying cars. And that insinuates that girls are meant to take care of the family because a doll represents a kid, while men are supposed to maybe drive because that is a car that has been bought for the boy. The naming of children in the same, because we have, as someone mentioned earlier, we start talking to children as early as when the mom falls pregnant. So then that is carried forward towards naming. So when you name someone Beauty and the other one the opposite of it, then most likely Beauty is a girl and Ugly is a boy. We also have different roles that are given to children. So we were saying, for instance, if children got back from school right now, you'll find the boy with the dad in the sitting room just watching TV, and the mom will call their daughter to the kitchen so that they can cook together. So that says that women are meant to be in the kitchen and men are supposed to just relax and watch. So we talked about men, less regard being given to female as compared to their male counterparts. Yet female also play a very big role in the family. We also talked about games, because different games in the family are played by different individuals. So you may find, okay, in my community, we have games whereby children cook. They gather together, both male and female, to cook. But when the cooking is ongoing, it's the woman that is cooking, the girls, and the men will go and collect something to be cooked by the girls. And career training in families, you'll hear my parents saying such things like, oh, I want you to be a doctor, I want you to be a pilot, maybe telling the male children. And mostly you hear for the girls that are being told, I want you to be a nurse, you know. And also in schools, certain teachers encourage certain children. If it's the boys, they will encourage them to be maybe engineers. If it's for the girls, they'll give them other roles, other courses. They'll ensure they're pursuing other courses that are female in nature. Also, the games that children play in school and colleges speak a lot in gender formation. So that's what we were able to discuss in group 5. Thank you so much.
So thank you so much, group 5. Group 2, 3, and 4, is anybody ready to give something, or should we proceed?
They should be able to unmute themselves.
Yes, that's what I also thought, but we can for now proceed. So friends, what is happening, and what we tried to do was to look at our own lives, at our own communities, the lives that we have experienced ourselves and the lives that we see others experiencing in different areas. And so there are a few highlights on gender formation. And these highlights are really highlights because we picked some of these items already in our groups, and Professor had also noted these items earlier on. Gender is taught by parents, by siblings, by relatives, by friends, by the faith community, in schools, in colleges, and in workplaces. But the most intensive teaching happens early in one's life. So gender formation does not stop because gender formation does not stop because you are now an adult. Because there is the misconception that gender formation only happens when we are children. Yes, most of it happens when we are children, but even as we have become adults, that is why even as you dress to go out and you are now final year student in the university, your mom, your father can still comment on your dressing. Why do you dress like a boy? Because there is a certain expectation of how a university student, female student, must dress and present themselves. So it happens throughout life. And therefore, we could speak when we are discussing gender formation. Friends, we can speak of lifelong learning. Lifelong learning. We will always be going through gender formation until we die. But maybe even as we are lying in state, right? The diplomatic way of saying when we are dead. So when we are lying in state, there are still rituals that might still want to communicate that the person that is dead is feminine or masculine. Imagine what happens at funerals. Is it exactly the same when a woman is dead, when a man is dead? Or is gender formation even following us to the grave? So that's one element of gender formation. It is lifelong learning. It is lifelong formation. The second, that is also clear, is that gender formation does also follow a non-formal approach to learning. So we are not asked to enroll into a formal school where we will be taught what it is that we should be doing for us to become women or to become men. Learning is done in different places, in different areas. So in the playground, gender formation is happening. In church, in Sunday school, in church from the pulpit, gender formation is happening. In the family, when we sit on the table to eat, gender formation is happening. So there is no space where you can say, okay, this is the only space where gender formation is not happening. It takes a non-formal approach. And that way, it allows itself to infiltrate all spaces. So everywhere where human beings are, gender formation is taking place. The third and final form is that it also does take formal learning approach. When you consider the different places, there are times when formation is almost systematized, that it has become formal learning. So if you take, for example, resources such as the books that we use for Sunday school teaching, their gender is formalized, and the way it is taught is also very formal. When we go for premarital counseling, right, we begin to be exposed to formal gender formation. Remember that you are committing yourselves to go into a divine institution that was brought in by God, right? In which God has decided that the man is the head and the woman is the helper. So know your space, know your place in this marriage. You young men, be the head. You young woman, be the helper. And so on. So we do have instances where gender formation takes a formal learning approach to getting formation or to getting people to conform to these expected roles and norms and values. Socialization materials cover norms, values, practices, roles that are to be developed through listening to the teachers and to be observed by children as they interact with others. So, young boys don't only become what their fathers and what their mothers tell them they should become. They also become what they see their fathers to be. So don't say, I tell my children these things. Start also to think about what you do that your children see. Because there is the verbal teaching, but there is also the illustrative teaching. Our actions are what our children observe. So a child that keeps seeing violence in their family will learn to be violent as well. So we need to always bear in mind that it's what we say, but it is also a lot of what we do. The teaching and learning employs multiple approaches from verbal to illustrative, from listening to observation. The goal always being to make males at birth become boys and men, while females at birth must become girls and women. This is the goal of gender formation. And this formation is very successful because most of us conform to these socially constructed roles That's why most of us were born males, and today we identify as men. That's why most of us here were born females, and today we identify as women, as men and women that conform to the expectations of our societies. That is gender formation. But then what happens, friends, if some choose not to conform? I see someone has raised their hand. Techno, come on. Please. Okay, so I will proceed. So next stage, now that we have seen what gender formation is, and like I'm saying, we don't have to be experts. We don't have to read a particular book. We need to begin to process the things that we've been doing and begin to look critically at what is happening around us, so that we begin to see not gender formation as it is explained in books, but gender formation as we experience it and as we see it happening around us. The next stage, friends, is to look at gender gatekeeping. Gatekeeping is a very important element of gender, particularly the sustenance of gender. Societies hold dear their creations and go to great lengths to defend those creations. Sometimes, even when it is clear such creations are working against the good of others in that society. Because society has said, this is how our men must behave, must act, and this is how our women must behave and must act. Society will defend this, even if these norms or values are not really promoting the common good. Society, because this is their theme, society will defend it. Now, the process of defending, enforcing, and entrenching social creations is what we are referring here as gatekeeping. Gatekeeping. Now, let me explain this a bit more. I don't know about you, but when I was growing up, friends, I had a friend whose father ran the grocery store in our village. So they were basically the rich people of our village. They had a grocery store. And we were in the same class with this boy. He was my friend. I was the favored one because he could have chosen to play with anyone because everybody wanted to play with him. I mean, look, he brought sweets to school. Sometimes if we went for sports, he brought cash, pocket money, and so he could buy things. So if you were going to be a friend of this guy, you were really the favored one, the honored one. But there was always the danger that if he brings on board many more friends, the cake will get smaller and smaller because he will have to share it amongst a lot of people. So those of us that were favored to be his friends early on, because, you see, sometimes it pays, because I did not only meet this guy in school, we also went together to the same church. And our fathers were also somehow close. you know. So there were several levels at which I had an advantage over my other age mates. So I was favored. But this is how gatekeeping works. If anybody wanted to talk to him, I literally made myself the receptionist, or you know, the guy, that the bouncer that protects this endangered species. So I and one or two other guys that were in this circle played the gatekeeping role. So no one could talk to him without talking to us. We have to approve who talks to him or who doesn't talk to him. That is gatekeeping. You know, those people that know the priest or the pastor because they come from the same village, who always tell you when you say, I want to see the pastor, and they always tell you, but the pastor is busy. You know, the guy that seemed to know the lecturer in the university, that when you say, oh, is the lecturer in today? They always tell you, oh, no, he's in, but when I saw him, he said he was already leaving. So you can't see him. You know, those people, that is gatekeeping. Social gatekeepers decide what will be known and how it will be known. They will authorize what is to be known, and they will also sanction any non-conformity. They will sanction severely anybody that tries to challenge what they are gatekeeping. And so most societies use the shame and honor model, sometimes called the carrot and stick model, right? When you conform, the gatekeepers will reward you. They will honor you. If you do not conform, the gatekeepers will shame you. So women that are thriving, right, but that are not married, when they say it is not right for men to oppress women, then what happens? The gatekeepers say, oh, you see, she failed to hold a house of her own. She cannot even be married herself. What can she tell us about marriage? What can she tell us about how men and women relate? Don't listen to this. She's a failure, right? And then you hear pastors say, you know, these marriage things don't require degrees, not from the university. And so they begin to shame people while extolling and honoring and rewarding those that conform. So friends, again, we want to go into groups to consider how gatekeepers defend, enforce, and sanction gender compliance. And we have another worksheet to work with on this second working group session that we have. How are gatekeepers defending, enforcing, and sanctioning gender non-compliance or gender compliance? If we begin to challenge the things that we have been told and given at the stage of gender formation, how does gender gatekeeping react and respond to this? So we have another worksheet that we are going to make use of. And so I will also share so what we can also do is, let me put it in the chat now before we go into the groups, and then those that will present on behalf of the groups download the worksheet before we go into the smaller groups. I think it will make the process faster this time around. So I will stop sharing, but this is the worksheet. Again, it's only 2 questions. Who are the gatekeepers of gender identities, roles, norms, and values? Who are the people that are tasked by societies to be the police, basically, gender conforming police? In the past few days, maybe some of you might have seen some news coming out of Iran and speaking about a young woman that died at the hands of the Iranian moral police or morality police. So who are the gatekeepers, the police that are always looking at who is conforming and who is not conforming, rewarding those that are conforming, and punishing or shaming those that are non-conforming? That's the first question. The second question: what are the things that are said and done in each of these places to enforce compliance with assigned gender identities, right? So I know growing up, I was once told, or we were told when we were growing up, that if you, as a boy, if you tested, the food that is on the fire, on the hearth, that's being cooked, if you tested it, then you'd grow breast and become like a woman. And so if you look at it, and there you are as a young man, now you really want to test what's cooking, but at the same time, you are scared of developing breast and becoming a woman. So these are the kinds of things that we sometimes encounter in different societies. So I will now stop sharing, and then I will put in the chat. In the chat, I'm going to put the document. Okay, let me close it because it's... Okay, so now we have the worksheet in the chat. Those that will be responsible, or let us just download the worksheet, and then we are put into our groups. So let's quickly download, and then we are put into our groups. Reverend Dr. Pauline, you can already, I think, begin to assign us to groups. And then I'm hoping also everybody's downloading, and those that will then report back, you need to fill in some stuff onto the worksheet. So again, we go for 15 minutes and then we come back. Reverend Dr. Pauline.
I have done. I have also sent the question on the WhatsApp group.
Hello.
Elvis, your hand is up. Yes.
And we'll once again ask those that share with us the outcome of the group discussions. We know that, yeah, Zoom rooms are not always the best, but we did have, I was walking through, passing through the different rooms. I think I experienced some very interesting discussions taking place. So I will ask to begin with group 5. If we can begin with room 5 to give us their own feedback. Room 5, please.
Okay. Thank you. My name is Noah Nangwagbia. I'm from South Sudan. I'm the secretary of Room 5. We actually we enjoyed the discussion for the 2 questions that you gave us. It was very fruitful. We looked at it as different settings, but we came up that the collecting, the important thing is that we can put in is look at the example or that we mentioned it here before in the main forum, in the main discussion here. We looked at for the question 1, we looked also at schools, school levels. We put that school level also there, and then we looked also at relative levels. We looked also at family levels. We looked also at church levels. So we tried and we put that one as all these are coming up from what? From me.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, it was very noisy.
Yes, I could also hear that.
Yeah. So those are the ideas that we contributed as a group 5 for the first question. Coming to the second question, we looked at the cultural diversity. We think there is still cultural practices. We mentioned that one, and then we also talk about the parents are not playing their roles in the families. Or talking of that, parents are not playing their roles in the families. We talk also about when we come to the workplace, we think there's something like a sexual harassment. It's also there. When a lady wanted to work to apply for work, boss can just say, "Oh, don't waste of time. I'm bringing application. What I can do for you, just offer me your body, then everything will be well. I will give you the job." So also women are facing that. Most of our ladies nowadays are facing that when they're applying for work. So this is why we came up with a sexual harassment. Also one of it. So because of time, I'll just stop here. And if someone wanted to add something from my group, the floor is open. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone from group? Oh, okay, before we ask for additional comments, let's also hear from the other groups. Maybe they will add to what you have shared. So group 4, can we have somebody speak from group 4? Group 4.
In group 4?
Yes,
we
please.
discussed that some of the gatekeepers are the family. We also have our neighbors, the community elders, and who are also the cultural leaders. We also have the church and also the religious leaders who are the gatekeepers. So in topic 2, in question 2, it was about family. It was about the what we do in each places to enforce gender identities. So the family helps us know which gender here a boy or a girl is. It also helps in family. Parents encourage boys and girls. They become of age to take up different roles. Also, and in the church, they do counseling, empowerment. Then in school, we are given knowledge and skills which help model us as boys and girls. Then in our workplace, yeah, you find there are different jobs are given to different men and women. For example, you get finance positions are given more to the males, and secretarial jobs are given more to the female. Thanks.
Thank you so much, group room 4. Now let us hear from room 3.
Okay, I'll present for room 3. For the gatekeepers, we said parents, pastors or church leaders, teachers, cultural leaders or cultural heads, the government, and also the media, and particularly influencers, both in mainstream media, print media, and digital media like social media and all of that. Then what are some of the things that are said and done? We were still having the conversation, so I'll quickly speak to some of the things that we shared, a few others that I wanted to say, and then in case there's anyone else who wants to speak to these, I'll allow them. So in the family, some of the things are said. Men are the heads of the family. Women or ladies are supposed to cook for the men. Men are given hard work, work that needs a lot of energy, like building, constructing, grazing. Women are given like simpler tasks, like cooking. Within the family, in terms of when children are younger, the toys that are bought for girls and for boys, they are very distinctive. Preparing them for their roles, and also colors. There's a color: pink is for girls, blue is for boys. Then for church, we talked of role division, where women cook and clean most of the time, and men take most of the leadership positions. We talked about the language of chairman, brothers, man, used often in church, and it is intended to be inclusive. And I think for the college, the choice of courses, some courses are regarded feminine. I think it's a little bit like what Jairo is saying, and hence suitable for women like secretary, nurse, teacher, and then others are considered more suitable for men like engineering, being pilots, and all of that. Then within school, a particular example is how student elections are done. Like students get together in camps, but then within the camps, they're mobilizing votes together, but all the key positions, president, treasurer, are held by men, and then the ladies are often in vice positions, so vice president, vice this, deputy that, or secretary. Yeah, I think if there's any other person from the group, they can mention, since you were still having the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Room 3, very interesting conversations that we're getting here, friends. Room 2, can you also add to the conversation?
Yes, I think we relate more to what room 3 has just shared. But I'm going to add for question 1, we've also spoken about the clan elders. We've spoken about family members. We've spoken about the government as well, and parents, as all others have mentioned. For the second question, we've talked about some duties that parents assign to the children, some duties like the kitchen, the dishes, all those duties are given to girls. and boys are given some other duties. And also in schools, we actually have some courses that are given to girls, especially in my country, in the DRC. There is one course called Education à la vie, which is life education, where we mostly, they mostly try to educate girls on a social role in society. So that course is only for girls and not for boys. We also talked about Sundays at Sunday school, where they actually teach kids, about the church doctrine. And yeah, I think, yeah, this is what we can add.
Thank you so much for adding a lot more information to our conversation. And each new presentation brings closer to us, particularly the elements of gender formation. Now we are seeing more and more information on how, the idea of who you are is being buttressed across the different spheres of our lives, from Sunday school to the school, the formal school, to the college and all that. Everywhere, someone is doing something to impress upon us who we are, and at the same time, how we should act. Finally, let me call room 1 to give us their own intervention.
Thank you very much. In room 1, we talked about the one most great importantly is the church, which has a great role to play. Then secondly, the parents, like the family, the government, and the institution, like the school. Like in Nigeria, when we talk about the church, the Baptists in particular, the role of leadership is given to both the men and the women. The women, most especially, they perform greatly when it comes to the issue of leadership, because in the church, when you look at it, you can see that women are more committed than the men in the aspect of church leadership. Then also in the government, you can see that in Nigeria, the president, gives the equal right to the women also in leadership positions. You can see ministers from the women, commissioners in the state government and the rest. Also in the school, there is no kind of discrimination in leadership. The men and the women are given the great role. Then also the family, the men and the women, let's say the boys and girls, they are given equal rights, and in position also they are being given equally. You can't see where the female child will be subjected to some duties alone, because even the male children, male child, also do washing of dishes, cooking. Myself, I can use myself as an example. I did a lot of cooking while I was small. My parents taught me that. So the family equally have a great role, and it is equal in that area. Thank you.
I wish Mr. Shioma has not generalized in his assertion that there are still some part of Nigeria that might not give credence to the female, that they value the male more compared to the opposite sex, the female. So actually, you have spoken well, but I think there is still more to be done. And when you bring in area of religion, you still see, yes, we are talking as per Christians now, but talk of the Muslim, you see that their wives, the women, are being subjected. So in the northern part of Nigeria, and in the northern part of Nigeria, you don't see a woman coming out to speak out. It is all about the men. So you have to point to an extent, but I think we shouldn't generalize. We still have more work to be done.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the intervention. But friends, this is our life. And these are the experiences that we share. Sometimes we want the best. Sometimes we don't get the best. Sometimes we do get the best. But this is our life. So let us proceed by highlighting the highlights of gender gatekeeping based on what we have contributed from our different groups. Gender is a social system that governs how power is assigned and distributed in most societies, is a well-guarded and defended turf. There is a lot of guardedness, protectiveness when it comes to gender. It's critical because society thinks its very future, its very existence into the future is dependent on people observing and upholding the gender identities, roles, norms, and values that society has created and has assigned to every individual. I'm sorry if you're hearing some feedback. I think a neighbor is working on something with a drill. So I'm hearing it, but I'm not too sure if it's also coming over to you. And I am sorry, I have no way of shutting it down. So just bear with me. So gender as a social system has to be, society thinks it has to protect what it has created. Gatekeeping of gender is spread out because remember we said gender is learned across several spheres. What it also means is that almost in every place where gender is learned or learned, there has to be gatekeeping done in that space. So if we say there's a lot of gender learning that is happening or gender socialization that is happening at the family level, it also automatically means that at the family level, there is also gender gatekeeping that is happening. If we say in the formal school, there is gender formation that is taking place there, it then means also that there is gender gatekeeping that is there, because each place of learning is equipped with the power to enforce and to defend and protect. So gatekeeping is spread out across multiple gatekeepers. And most interestingly, even though we all are almost in agreement that women have always gotten the worst out of this gender, out of the gender toxicity that we acknowledge is there. Women are amongst some of the most ardent gatekeepers of gender inequality, of gender imbalance, sometimes even of gender-based violence. And this is saddening because women do defend abusers instead of defending the abused fellow woman. It is women that ask the question, young woman, you say you were raped. What were you wearing? Young woman, what time were you raped? These are questions that women gatekeepers ask as a way of showing that the victim had it coming, that the victim invited the abuse. So women who are supposed to be victims and survivors can also play the gatekeeping role. In most families, it is our mothers that were the enforcers of gender norms, gender roles, and behaviors. It was our mothers that said, if this continues, I will inform your father, because you are refusing to conform. So women play a very critical gatekeeping role. The challenge is, how do we begin to conscientize women, even those that are on this platform today, to realize that we are gatekeeping things that are toxic, not only to us, but to our children as well. So gatekeeping is aware that most human beings, when given an opportunity, will not conform to authority. That's why we need the police. That's why we need gatekeeping. But then for gatekeeping to work, if punishment is going to work effectively, it must be accompanied by a rewarding system. Because look, if you say, if you pass, that's okay, we will not touch you, we will not see it. But if you fail, we will beat you up. So what's the incentive? So there has to be an incentive for passing. If the punishment for failing is going to make sense, so you give people something like a choice. So either you pass and we reward you, or you fail and we punish you. Either you come to school early and we reward you, or you come late and we punish you. Either you become the woman that we have assigned you to become. If you don't, we shame you. So how does society deploy or employ the shame and honor model to create an effective gatekeeping system? So all persons that do not conform to the established gender structure are shamed. Now, I know in this platform, most of us are in the university studying, but we are now in our 20s. And some of us have already started hearing questions like, so what's the marriage plan, particularly for the young women, right? But you know, sometimes if you choose to be married, it might mean or imply suspending development, career development for yourself. So a young woman that chooses to pursue career development at a time when the entire family, the entire formation and gatekeeping system thinks they are now ready for marriage, will begin to experience the other side of the shame and honor model. So those that will suspend career development and choose to marry are presented as the ultimate role models of womanhood. So at every given opportunity, they are asked to come and sit with other respected women. But the one that chose career development over settling down in marriage is constantly shamed. When respectable women are invited to discuss issues of the community, this woman, this young woman is not invited. When other issues, even in the family, are being discussed, you are not invited. When you see a call from the gatekeepers, it's because now they are confronted with a financial invoice. There you become useful. So you are only useful the moment we are asking you to pay. Because career means money. But marriage means wisdom. That's how the gatekeeping system presents the choice. Choose career, you are choosing money. Choose marriage, you are choosing wisdom. So when we want ideas, we don't invite the career person because they have not developed to the level of wisdom that is expected. That can only be achieved by getting married. So at every given opportunity, when this career woman says, oh, but I think this, and then people will respond, oh, can you shut up? Have you ever run a family before? Are you married? How do you know what you are trying to say? Right? Keep quiet. Let women that are women speak. They speak from experience because we can all see what they are doing. They are successful according to social expectations. So this is gatekeeping at its best or at its worst. Those that do not conform are labeled as outcasts. They are even labeled as dangerous people. So a young woman that has just been married into this community is seen going to fetch water at the community borehole in the company of this woman that is not married, but that is way past the age of being married. And that already creates a problem. What do you learn from her? Right? She's not married. What do you learn from her? So she is othered. She is the outcast. She is being deprived of friendships. She literally is now a marginalized person. You can no longer know happiness. That is gatekeeping, friends. Conformity, on the other hand, is seemingly rewarded. And I'm saying seemingly because sometimes the rewards are not necessarily rewards, because the women still live in these toxic gender relationships. But society will use them to present them as role models to young women. So each time when they want a woman to demonstrate something or to make a point, they choose a woman that conforms. A woman that dresses the way society wants women to dress. A woman that is doing things that society has assigned to her. This is the woman that is always uplifted. So if you go into, for example, the school textbooks, the kind of women that get space in pictures, in stories, in the school textbooks, in a positive way, are women that are dressed appropriately as society demands. Women that are not taller than their husbands. I think in a way, in some societies, when a wife is taller than their husband, that's already not conforming to gender, because it's always like the men should be bigger and taller and so on. So in school textbooks, you rarely find a family in which the wife is taller than the husband, because society wants the husband to be taller, to be older, sometimes even to be fatter than the woman. The woman has to be smaller, shorter, and younger. That is how, these things are information. And when conformity is not achieved, we then begin to see the punishments, the shaming that follows non-conformity. Family, faith community, and sometimes formal education teachers and professional peers are the most ardent gatekeepers for gender conformity. They are the most ardent gatekeepers of gender conformity. So gatekeeping is very critical. And these are the obstructions that transformational and transformative masculinities face. We are living in communities that are serious about keeping gender relations as they have always been. If there are Anglicans amongst us, we know that part of the prayer where we say, as it was in the beginning, as it is now, so shall it be, world without end, etc., etc., right? Things must not change. That is the core value, the core motivation of gender gatekeeping. As it was, so it is, so should it remain. But we are saying this is unsustainable because too many lives have been lost, too many lives have been maimed, and too many lives have been harmed. There's been too much tears shed because of the toxicity that is happening in our gender relations. How can we make inroads into confronting these gender gatekeepers and gatekeeping systems? Instead of us going back into the breakout rooms for this final session, we will try just to have a conversation here, because I'm also mindful of the time and we have been at this for a long time already. So overcoming gatekeeping resistance. So gatekeeping is the resistance that transformational, which is the reform-minded, and transformative, which is the revolutionary minded transformative masculinities and femininities. The resistance that comes is what we have noted as the gatekeeping processes. From previous sessions, we realized how societies defend their creations. Gatekeepers, whether it is our mothers, whether it is our teachers, whether it is our Sunday schools, whether it is our priests and our pastors, our lecturers, right? All these people that are gatekeepers, they resist any attempts to remove the toxicity in gender relations. We are not calling for the end of gender relations, no. Because there is always this danger that you want to do away with gender. We don't want to do away with gender. We want to do away with toxic gender relations, toxic manifestations of gender identities, toxic gender norms, toxic gender values, toxic gender practices. These are the things that we want to get rid of. The toxicity is what has resulted in the so many deaths that we within the World Council of Churches remember, commemorate every Thursday when we wear black. There have been too many of these deaths, too many maimings that have happened. So we want to remove this status quo. but there's always resistance of anything that is suspected of seeking to change the status quo. However, evidence-based research is clear. Whether it is the researches that are done in Kenya, in South Africa, in Zimbabwe, in Uganda, in Nigeria, it is clear that the current gender construction, the current construction of gender relations is not working for most societies. That is why 1 in every 3 women experiences gender-based violence at some point in their lives. That is why out of 100 cases of murder that are tried in most of our countries, 2/3 of these crimes are crimes of passion inflicted on women by men, or some of them on men by women. I heard soon after the elections in Kenya that a woman who was running in for some office ended up killing their own husband and so on. So there is also that element that we should always remember, that there are also a few men that do suffer gender-based violence, and a few men that are victims. Others are survivors, but some are even victims of gender-based violence. But friends, more than 90% of the cases of gender-based violence that we deal with are especially on men as perpetrators, with females, women, as either victims or survivors. So this is what evidence-based research shows. If so many women are victims of gender-based violence, it means there is something wrong with the way gender is currently constructed. So, unless gender is reconfigured and re-engineered, girls and women will remain disproportionately vulnerable to all the vagaries of this life. And overall, society cannot know happiness while women are groaning. It's impossible. I mean, imagine a family in which the mother is constantly being brutalized by the father. Even when the father smiles, can there be happiness in this family? Can there be happiness in this family? Unless everyone is smiling, there is no way this family can be happy. The same applies to our societies. For as long as women continue to carry the burden of gender-based violence and of the gender inequalities that are in existence, there is no way society can know happiness. How can we overcome this concerted resistance in defense of toxic gender? How can we overcome this? I will move to the highlights, and then we can have an open discussion as we move towards closing this session. The gatekeepers of toxic gender norms, values, and practices are sometimes ignorant of the full impact of that toxicity. Because if they knew the full impact, I think it should give them sleepless nights to think that they are shepherding young women to go out there and become sacrificial lambs, to become the punching bags of some young men and men out there. but education must become a critical strategy for exposing the toxicity and promoting the alternatives. Friends, we saw earlier that gender formation is in itself a process of education. We become the gendered people that we are because of the education that we go through. If we are going to change, to move from toxic gender norms to gender norms that are positive, then we need to employ education as a critical strategy, not only of teaching new norms, but of showing how toxic the current norms are. So I always laugh because, you know, our mothers, I don't know in your different countries, but in Zimbabwe, a mother has two very different views of gender relations. A mother that is a mother of a son and a daughter. So this mother visits the son, and as she arrives, the son springs into action and asks his wife, the daughter-in-law, to sit with the mother-in-law, watching television while he fixes them something to eat. That mother sees the work of juju, or, you know, these traditional love potions kind of things. She does not see love. She sees a son that is bewitched. But that same mother, after 2 weeks of visiting the son and the daughter-in-law, goes to her daughter's own house, where the same thing happens. The mother arrives, and the son-in-law this time springs into action, asks his own wife to sit with the mother-in-law while he fixes them something. The mother-in-law, all of a sudden, does not see the bewitched young man. She sees a young man and a young woman in love. Now, these are some of the challenges that we need education to address. If it is good for the goose, it is good for the gander. How can we employ education? And education, remember we noted earlier, it doesn't have to be formal education always. It can also be non-formal. So in those women's meetings that we gather in the Sunday school, in the formal school textbooks and everywhere, can we begin to expose the toxicity of the traditional gender norms? We know not everything in those norms is toxic. We know not everything in those values is toxic, but we should be able to expose those toxic elements, get rid of them. So education is one key strategy to overcoming the resistance, the gatekeeping. The second point that we want to note is that some of the toxicity is legal because there are laws, whether it is national laws or maybe even laws in our faith community that protect practices, norms, and behaviors. So they become legal, right? So if the church that you go to constantly hammers the point that the man is the head of the family, he is the provider, and he has the right to discipline everyone that he provides for, and all these other things, that becomes legal. So you can't go to the pastor, to the chair lady of the women, to speak about your husband disciplining you because he is the head of the family and therefore has the right to discipline. And because some of these, the toxicity is legal, we need the strategy of advocacy and lobbying. We need to advocate and lobby policymakers. Who are the people that make the laws, that make the rules in church and in wider communities? We need to make these people become aware of the toxicity and the consequences of this toxicity. So when cases happen, let us bring them to the attention of the policymakers. When we begin to see gender-based violence happening amongst our own community members in the church or outside of the church, let us bring the policymakers on board. And therefore we advocate and we lobby the policymakers, because these will help to change the laws, to change the norms, the values, and the practices. So advocating and lobbying. But some of the toxicity is also theological and doctrinal, because they are entrenched in our religious teachings, in our sacred writings, and in our beliefs. Therefore, we need to promote mainstreaming of gender studies in theological education. It's something that is quite some shock, because it has been a long time since we have been speaking about transformative masculinity, but has not yet reached the point where gender studies are mainstreamed in our theological education, where also gender studies are not cross-cutting in our theological education. But this is something that we should, as of now, demand from the powers that be. We need to mainstream gender studies in theological education. And finally, most of the toxicity is observed by children. It is time to act differently. It is time to act transformatively for ourselves. Even if we can allow others to act transformationally, I think those of us sitting on this call, sitting in this platform today, we ought to be acting transformatively. Let us change things by acting differently. In conclusion, gender formation is a human or social process that is promoted, entrenched, enforced, and defended by gatekeepers. So, formation and gatekeeping. Gender formation is achieved by coalescing of various players and stakeholders spanning societal group at national level. So all these groups come together to teach the same thing, using different approaches, different methods, but they are all intending to achieve the transition from male at birth to masculine in life, from female at birth to feminine in life. That is the goal of gender formation and gender gatekeeping, from the family to the national level. Gatekeepers are found in all the spheres where gender norms, values, and behaviors are taught or propagated. Toxic gender relations can be confronted by mirroring the strategies that are used to propagate them, while proposing and promoting healthy gender relations built on the principles of equality, equity, and justice for all. Thank you. Reverend Doc, that is my...
Thank you very much, Professor. I know our time is much spent, but we are going to take a few questions. So I will ask the listeners to bring up the questions. Shalom. Bridget, any one of you? McKenna? Amega? Any one of you unmute and ask the questions you have collected? Bridget?
Yes, thank you so much, Professor Maziwa, for sharing. I haven't seen any question yet. Most of them are comments, and maybe I'll just read like two. We have a comment from Noah saying that it's true that we should continue to advocate for the rights of women and girls in our various communities. And it's true that education is the key to overcome such practices in our communities. And the last comment is from, sorry, the last comment is from Sarah, says marriage doesn't automatically mean career development suspension. Otherwise, I'm not seeing any other question here. Back to you, Prof.
Shalom, Edna. Please unmute and read what we have, yeah.
On my side, I can also see comments. There's a comment from, just a minute, Akumuntu Banansile, who said, yes, gender articulation formation from elementary stages is very important. Oh, sorry. The person who had said that was Pastor Ayodele, who said articulation of gender formation from elementary stages is very important here. This can help a lot in our society. Yeah, that's the one I've seen.
I've come across a question from Ambrose. It says, apart from the woman being an ardent gatekeeper, and parents as the moderator has been elaborating, how about the authority responsible for keeping law and orders?
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. I had also seen that question and I was about to come in on that. And also because there was a comment on career development and marriage not always being mutually exclusive of each other. And that's a very correct observation. It doesn't mean that when a woman is married, their career is automatically disrupted or suspended. However, if you check statistically, women that marry early sometimes face more challenges to pursue career development than women that pursue career development first before getting married. And so we need to be clear. It's possible to be married and to pursue career development without any challenges, particularly when you marry a husband that's also very willing to encourage you to pursue your career development. But there are men that say, I will marry you and I will support you through your career development. And then once you are married, they say, oh, you know, we can't be in marriage without a child. You know, we have a child and then you go back to school and so on. And so several things happen sometimes that then lead to the woman's career being stunted in its development. So it's not mutually exclusive, but there are more challenges that come with marriage before career development. Now, on the question of the authorities that keep law and order at a national level sometimes, that's very true. But law and order must not only, particularly when we're looking at gender, we should not look at law and order particularly only in terms of the national constitution or laws and so on. Law and order begins in the nuclear family, right? In every family, there is an element of law and order. That is why in some families, by 6 p.m., all the women of the house must be indoors. Or by 7 p.m., everybody must be indoors and so on. So there is law and order at every level of society. But at the national level, do you know, and this happened, Professor Chitando might confirm this also. There was a time when walking in the streets of Harare at night as a young woman was almost a criminal offense, because there was a law that was called soliciting, which is a law that was used to arrest commercial sex workers. But it was so open that any woman walking without a man after sunset in the streets of Harare could be arrested for soliciting. And there were women that actually slept in police cells because they had been arrested for soliciting, even though they were actually professionals that were coming from their offices and trying to find public transport to go home. So that is also an element, because there is within this law the idea that men can walk alone at night and it's not a problem because they are men. But women will need men to accompany them if they are walking at night. So you begin to see how even national laws can also become instruments of gatekeeping gender roles and gender practices and values. It's the same way that, for example, even though we are Christians and we read Genesis which says, where it speaks about marriage, it says the young man will leave his parents and be joined to the young woman. That's what is in Genesis. But what happens? Our laws say the woman must leave her family to be joined to the family of the man. The woman will even, in some countries, be forced to change their name from their maiden surname to the husband's surname. If you don't, I remember some years ago, my wife, we got married. We had our civil marriage, the officially recognized marriage in Zimbabwe. And then she wanted to apply for her passport. When she went to the passport office, she was told, oh, you cannot apply your passport using this ID that you have, which had a maiden surname, because the system now recognizes that she is married, and therefore she had to go and change her ID first to have my surname put onto her name on the new national ID. Only then could she apply for a passport. But since I got married, I don't have to go through all these practices. So it is true that law and order at all levels tries to enforce or to gatekeep gender roles, gender values, gender norms, and so on. Thank you.
Yes, Edna. Edna, do you have any question that you have picked?
The question I picked, I think, is the one that he said he saw it. Otherwise, I'm just seeing the comments so far.
Any comments you can read? Okay. And then body with a question. Yes.
There is a question or a comment from Emmanuel. It's a question, but it's which says, in some congregations, girls and women are required a specific or to observe a specific way of dressing while serving or taking part in religious meetings. Yes, it's these are the things. You know, I have known friends that dress in pants, right, in trousers, Monday to Friday. But they have dresses specifically for Sunday or for Saturday, because the church will not tolerate them coming to church in a pair of pants. And so if you happen to come in a pair of pants, then you will be shamed. Sometimes even the sermon of that particular day will change to dressing. Women do not dress the clothes that are meant for men, and so on and so forth. But we all know that we don't even know what design God used when they dressed Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. All we know is God dressed them. So if this woman is not naked, I don't think there is any particular dressing for a man or for a woman that pleases God. Those that were at the assembly, Reverend Dr. Pauline, you know the people from the Pacific, the men wear skirts, right? Through and through. They are always wearing skirts and so on. So it doesn't really matter what we dress in, as long as we are dressed, we are covered. I don't think there is any particular problem that we should be focusing on. And the Bible does not clearly say how we should dress. I think dressing is cultural. And therefore, we can decide within our communities how we are going to dress. And that means we can challenge also what society says we should be doing in terms of our dress code.
Thank you very much, Professor. We have had a new angle of gender gatekeeping. And maybe my parting shot before I say it, I want to appreciate the professor and ask everyone to go on the reactions and appreciate Professor Maziwa.
Sorry, Reverend.
Yes,
there is a
Edna.
question from Noah. I don't know if it's seen.
Yes, go ahead.
It says, I know gender formation is very important in our community, but what can be done to the notorious group of young men who took laws and looks done on women and girls in our respective communities?
Okay, Professor.
I think the long and short of this is that that should actually be criminalized. We should lobby our churches, we should lobby our MPs, our councillors, to put laws in place that criminalize this kind of behavior. Let all these young men know that you do it, you go to jail. It's sometimes, because I get it, I've seen young women being heckled and abused in streets. But as long as our law enforcement is not willing to arrest these people, or unless our lawmakers are willing to put laws in place that criminalize this behavior, we will continue to have it. But once we begin to have people arrested for this, I think we will make a headway. But at the same time, we continue to engage in our communities. Let's have programs that bring these young men together. Let's talk to these young men. Let's have them appreciate what women are, because all of them are still born of a woman, remember. So they have a basis from which to begin to respect women. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor. It is always a great honor and privilege to sit under your feet and to run these great ideas. So thank you very, very much. We appreciate. I want to acknowledge everyone who has been on call. We have both mentors on call and also both our young people. We really, really appreciate. We hope that you will lobby the rest of the people tomorrow. We are not yet done. We have 2 more sessions and we are learning. My parting shot on the gender gatekeeping is that sometimes it looks like it is the right thing. Sometimes it looks like it is the right thing for us as women to tell other women how to dress or to do this or the other. One of the things that we know is that patriarchy uses women or co-opts women and uses them to propagate that culture of patriarchy. And women must keep on working hard to liberate themselves and liberate others from it. I've just come from Uganda, from several engagements with the 16 days of activism, which is still going on. And one of the sessions I had was with the Senior Mothers Union leaders. And we began talking about teenage pregnancies. And it is clear that when teenage girls get pregnant, they get blamed for it. And I was trying to ask them, you as mothers, you know how difficult it is to be pregnant. How can a small child, 13-year-old, be blamed for it instead of be supported? Because what they need is care, very delicate care. They themselves are a child and they are carrying a child. If the doctors don't terminate the pregnancy, then it has to be carried to term. So they need a lot of care. And the women were looking at me like, what do you really mean? But this is because we have been socialized in the way Professor is saying, that people have been gatekeepers and showing us that the victim is the one to be blamed. So we blame the victim more all the time. And that is what we are saying we must change. We must change. I believe that young people are the game changers, and we must keep on changing and questioning systems that do not make sense. When I got married in 1994, my church leader expected me to change my name. So every time I wrote a letter from the parish as the vicar of the parish and put my surname, he would send me a copy of that letter back, having canceled my surname and put the person who had married me his surname. So every time he would do that, he would cancel. And one time I confronted him. He was a bishop. So I asked him, why are you canceling my name? Why are you putting another name which I have not put? And he was like, now you are married, you have to change your name. And I remember I stayed firm. I did not change my maiden name because I looked at him at the face and said, tell me the reason why I must change my name. If there is a good reason to it, I will change. And for real, he didn't have any good reason. And from that time, he never canceled my name again. He accepted it. And up to today, my passport is in my maiden name. All my documents are in my maiden name. Now, what I have seen with many other educated women is that they change their names in the public sphere and still keep their maiden name in their legal sphere, like their documents still keep their maiden name. What we need to do as game changers is to live one life so that we stand for what we believe in and we fight for what we believe in. So if we think women should be free to choose what name to have and not be forced by culture, that is something we can fight for, because we can refuse to change our names. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. We will be good wives, we will be good mothers, we will be good workers, but we will not change our names. So that's how culture may begin to change, slowly by slowly. And as we were discussing with Mothers Union, again, as I said, the issue of dressing kept coming up. How you have to dress nicely as a Mothers Union leader. And I'm like, in Kenya, we had the phrase, my dress, my choice. And I think some people took it to the extreme. My dress, my choice simply means, are you decently dressed according to your standards of decency? Are you decently dressed according to what you'd consider as decency in the atmosphere where you live? So we must not be entangled by all these issues of dressing, issues of names, issues of the way we have been socialized, and we must not agree to be bought or co-opted into the gatekeeping, so that we ourselves, instead of becoming game changers, we become gatekeepers as well. So we must take into account what we have been learning from morning, see it through and see what is it that we can already begin to act on in our own individual lives, in our own corporate lives. Professor Maziwa has said very well, we need to do advocacy, we need to lobby. Some of that needs a lot of patience, a lot of humility, but we believe that if we remain on course, these are things that we can do, that our children, our grandchildren, your grandchildren do not have to suffer the same gender disparities that we suffer now, the same gender injustices that we have now, that these are things that can be worked on and worked towards as we move forward into creating the Africa we want, the future that we want. So thank you very much. We have gone overboard with 10 minutes, but I believe that you have enjoyed. May you be blessed. Those who are still in the afternoon, have a good afternoon. Those who are in the evening, have a good evening. Those who manage to go to church early tomorrow, please do. Let's meet back here, 9 a.m. Togo time, 12 p.m. Kenya time, and we continue to work together to find solutions that will make our tomorrow a better tomorrow. I will invite our own Lady Chemei, Reverend, to please come on board and say closing prayers. Thank you very much. May the Lord bless you. Lydia, please.
Thank you, Dr. Pauline. Let's pray. Merciful God, our creator and friend, we are so grateful for the opportunity you've given us to be able to learn together in the sessions that we have had this day. We ask for your blessing upon Dr. Pauline and the teams from the different regions of the higher that are giving leadership, helping in moderating and facilitating these sessions of learning. We pray that you renew their strength and be with them to the end. And we also ask for your blessing to the rest of us, that God, you're going to help us to act transformatively. We pray, God, for courage, for discernment, for grace and strength, that we will not relent, but we will be very decisive and act, so that together, God, with your help, we are able to raise a generation that is transformed, a generation that honors you. Dismiss us now with your blessings until we meet again tomorrow. This we ask with faith in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Have a good night.
Bye.
Amen.
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 Amen. Amen.
Bye bye. Let's meet in our group, in our main group.
Amen. Yes, you invited.
It
was good. Amen. Yeah.
Thank you, Professor.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Professor.
Amen.
We appreciate you.
It's a wonderful session.
Thank you.
Amen.
Thank you, Lord.
Thank you.
Amen.
Thank you so much. See you tomorrow in the session of tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay. Amen. At what time?
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Togo time, 12 p.m. Nairobi time.
Thank you, Doctor.
All right. Thanks. Thank you, guys.
Wonderful from here, Nigeria.
Thank you. Bye. Bye from Juba, South Sudan.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I started trying to test me. Your tight tape in the back, got a dead string. Beat up, but she trying to arrest me. Lying to impress me, dying to forget me. You know my songs, the odds. You keep on ringing me up,
Bye.